So this next half of the morning, we're going to do updates on the different centers and some of our major projects. So typically what our conferences have been about is updating on the current research in each of the centers, and then also on projects we've been collaborating with. And what we're excited about for this time is that we have invited some business guests, and we're truly interested in your feedback also as we go along. We hope that we would be able to spark some ideas, things that might be helpful back in your own businesses, or ideas of where we could maybe take this research that would be help to be more relevant and timely for what you see in your area. So a key goal for us going forward, John and I have called this like X Events 2.0. Now that we've been in operation close to 4 years, we feel that we're ready and want to be a little bit more aggressive with getting our research out into industry and policymakers. So certainly feel free to give us all the feedback as we go along here. Lena will be able to talk a lot more about that. There's a lot of components coming together here in looking at extreme events, uncertainty, resilience in a number of areas, business models, urban resilience. John's done a lot of work on social mood, which is also helpful as a little bit of an indicator, if not somewhat a predictor, although he doesn't like me using that word totally. And we're going to update here too. Now we have a major project over a grant that we have that is over the next 6 years to look at platform economies and to help businesses specifically in Finland to start with, and how they might enter the platform economy, what that looks like. So we're really studying that whole area pretty extensively and looking at companies as they merge together into different platform formats. So here's the locations that we are. We're here in Hoboken, Stevens Institute. So our partnerships, we have different collaboration partnerships with these different research centers that are operating independently, but collaborate and work with us as part of this X Center network. So we're in Tokyo, Seoul, Vienna, Helsinki, Prague, Hoboken, and in Silicon Valley. So I thought that one thing that would be helpful is to talk about the legal structure, because we get some questions on that, and we throw these acronyms around like Global X Network, GXN, X Events. So we formed it's a California corporation, X Events Unlimited, but we also, in the US, you can operate as an alias. So the X Events Unlimited and Global X Network is a California corporation. And the X Network is what is managing and working the collaboration of the research, and a goal of the X Events is to bring that to policymakers and decision makers. That's how we've been organized. So the scientific research kind of made this, as I'm saying, is independent. We have 7 centers right now that we're working together on these themes. And often we do work with other research centers on a as-needed basis, or not as extensively as the 7 centers that we've been working together. We also do what I would call, and maybe it's more familiar, the term applied research and projects to really test this research. And we've tapped into our virtual resources that would come out of the X centers. So we're engaged with Adrian also, who is full-time really working out in industry, has also helped us with a number of his tools, and we've helped him in terms of bringing that to industry. So that's how these really work together, and it's worked well for us, because in the area of, say, applying for grants or bids, be it EU or from the countries. Like Elena's done a lot of work in Finland. She's also works a lot with the group in South Korea and Tokyo and helps them get grants and business in those areas. So the fact that we're very global and we can test these, not only be so centric in one country, we can be looking across multiple countries and get feedback, and also to see how trends. So here's talking now about this platform Value Now. This is a 6-year project that Lena and I did a proposal and bid, and we was accepted in the September timeframe of this year. And it'll go for 6 years, and we're working with about 7 universities to study this platform. So if you see us like, where's platform come? In this context, it's a major project that's being done under here. It's being administered by one of the universities in Finland, Aalto University, but it's a...
Brenda, can you describe what you mean by platform?
Yeah, we're going to spend most of the afternoon tomorrow on that, if you don't mind. But things like in this area where companies like Uber and Airbnb, Amazon, they're setting whole new business models up in what's being called platforms. So often now when you look at a company's business model, they often don't even have any assets anymore. So both Lena and Victor's spending pretty much hours every day very aggressively researching and reporting on the trends that are happening in that area. So I'm going to let them study that a bit more because it's a bigger topic. And also then have the Express. So you see even from branding, except for I guess this is not a black swan. I mean, we took different colors. But the Express is an arm. It's also an entity that John and Roger are going to talk about later in the morning. But it is a way in which that we can also begin the publications, and they'll speak to how we see another way possibly to get the research publications out faster and in more of an open source way. So if we were to say in a nutshell what we're all about, and I put this in the agenda for the flyer for this conference, is we see that uncertainty is very much increasing, complexity is increasing, but we still have to make decisions every day. And sometimes I know when I was probably in the operations seat as CIO, my eyeballs, probably looked like that a couple times in terms of, it was never, is there going to be a problem? It's when and how big and what am I going to do about it? So we feel that in the past, everybody tried to really collect data and make decisions based on what happened in the past. But you'll hear us talk a lot about when there's no historical data as some of these X events and cause us to be in those positions, what do we do? So our idea and why we're so interested in looking at resilience is that you have to really accept uncertainty. You're kind of like a camel with the head in the sand if you can't wrap your mind around that uncertainty is here to stay, then it's more wise to invest in resilience than to try have any idea that you can plan from the backwards. So that's where our research and tools and methodologies are really aimed to help decision makers determine new paths and build resilience to weather in uncertain times. So a lot of the tools that we've used in this area and the knowledge we've used in this area, we will then apply to looking at the business models on this larger PBN project that we'll be doing over the next multiple years. I'm not going to go into this in any detail. The others probably will, but say for instance, is this not bad? Is that it? Oh. So say you have that you're trying to make a decision requires additional, sensitivity check. We can help them with some what-if processes, not to you see, like what Stevens did here is really taking that to the very next step, using visualization to help people in that area. we look at the whole idea of game changers. So you have an existing strategy, and we've done this with a number of companies. So they have their current strategy, they have core competencies, they have products, etc. But how is that going to be positioned in the next few years in the industry as that industry is moving and shaking and changing? So we have done some game changer exercise with people. We also have a product called 7 Shocks, where we have a number of shocks that we have studied, have data about that. Companies can add their own, and we would help them to analyze to end up to generate what we would call a sweet spot, or their action portfolio that would give them the optimal possibility of success if a current set of events should happen. So again, when we experimented, and you probably experimented, find that in your own businesses, it takes some little bit of effort to shape the executive team's mindset, because first they go, oh, that'll never happen, and then they relax. So we've had various, just to get their mind based on that. So our goal also is to build more active linkages with the business community to share our research and findings. Then we'll be coming out with more in that area. We also put out, can you put that? A daily complexity newsletter that we're more than happy to have yourselves on the distribution. So we've spent, and we in this case, Roger and I, have spent a lot of time now in building this area. So it is crawling, it's some of our own work, but it's also crawling the network and other authors, looking in the area of science and other system thinking and complexity. So I'm not sure why these aren't like kind of showing up, but you can see that it gives a lot of different topics, and would be going out and showing you current TED Talks and things like that, all in this area. And so what I find from our readers, they're always finding at least, one tidbit in there a day. In some ways, some say it's like drinking out of a fire hose, because a lot's happening out of there. So we're looking for ways to condense and say what we think is the most important over a short period of time. But that would also be available for yourselves. So any questions? Yes.
What is the circulation of the Global Express?
So it's going out, I don't know, what do you think, Roger, about 1,200 is on there now? So people can, it's also distributed to Twitter, and you know how that kind of goes viral. So then people can send it to others, and you can subscribe automatically to that. I can enter, as I meet people and they want to be added, then we add. But in many ways, it's gotten a life of its own, too.